this one going to end?
Oh, my goodness! What a play!
How are they going to set it up? How are they going to work it?
What a story!
Somehow.
The most amazing, sensational, dramatic.
Maybe. Yes, sir!
That's it! They've done it!
But isn't it great to be in that position?
Psychologically and physically now he's in control. If you have a lump in your throat, you're only human.
The Grand Flipper fits!
You're right down to the guts of it right here, friends. Is this really happening, Bill?
A dramatic finish, and here is the wire!
Great sports moments of the 80s. What does it make you think of? What great memories does it stir? I'm Al Michaels, and I'm about to take you on a little video odyssey, traveling back through the past 10 years and stopping along the way to revel in some of those special moments. Now, you probably have at least one vivid memory in which a sporting event is inextricably bound. Where were you? Who were you with when it happened? Well, we're going to try to rekindle some of those memories. You know, there's a marvelous writer by the name of Roger Angell who I think gets it just right. Belonging and caring is what our games are all about, he writes. This is what we come for. Naivete, the infantile and ignoble joy that sends a grown man or woman to dancing and shouting with joy in the middle of the night over the haphazard flight of a distant ball. Seems a small price to pay for such a gift. Well, with all of that in mind, we've assembled a wonderful collection of memories here. And we've even chosen our top 10 moments of the decade. Now, we may have left out some of your favorites, and you probably won't agree with all of our choices, but let's face it, that's part of the fun of it. Now, we're going to save the best for last, but let's get started with great sports moment number 10. The 1984 Orange Bowl, Nebraska against Miami with the national championship at stake. It seemed like just a formality, really, for an unbeaten Nebraska team that had averaged 52 points a game. Led by Heisman Trophy winner Mike Rozier, the Cornhuskers had won their third straight Big 8 title and were 11-point favorites over the hometown Hurricanes. Surely freshman Bernie Kosar would be no match for this juggernaut. But shockingly, at the end of the first quarter, Miami led 17-0. The bewildered Cornhuskers countered with the old fumble-rooski. Guard Dean Steinkuhler picked up an intentional fumble and lumbered 19 yards for the score. Still, Miami led by a touchdown late in the game. And when an injury ended Mike Rozier's college career unceremoniously, the Huskers had to go to a rusty air attack. Irving Fryer dropped a sure TD. And when Turner Gill had the ball batted away, Nebraska was down to its last gasp. A 4th and 8 with less than a minute left.
Look at this play, Jeff Smith.
Rozier's replacement, Jeff Smith, brought Nebraska to within 1 point of a national title.
Touchdown now. It's a 31-30 game. And what does Nebraska do?
I have not seen the kicker come on the field, and I don't think he's coming on the field. He's decided to go for 2 and take his shot at winning. I commend him for it.
This is for the national championship for Nebraska. Incomplete.
To the delight of most of the 73,000 in the Orange Bowl, Ken Calhoun's deflection meant a first-ever national title for Miami. For Nebraska, it was small consolation to be just a fingertip away from perfection. Still, both Nebraska and Miami were a cut above in the 80s. Others who could make that claim included the '85 Chicago Bears. Led by linebacker Mike Singletary, the Bears left an indelible mark. After 2 shutouts in the playoffs, the Bears defense left it up to Jim McMahon in Super Bowl 20 against New England. With a little help from 308-pound running back William the Refrigerator Perry, the Bears rolled over the Patriots 46-10 for Chicago's first title since '63. For Walter Payton, it was extra special because just a year earlier, he'd become pro football's all-time leading rusher, and now sweetness had a ring to go into the trophy case. So what could compete with passing Jim Brown? How about passing Ty Cobb? Who else but Pete Rose?
From Shaw, left center. There it is. Rose has eclipsed Cobb. That's number 4,192.
The Great One, he's called, and why not? You might argue that Wayne Gretzky dominated his sport more than any other athlete of the decade. In his first 10 seasons, he was voted MVP 9 times and came within striking distance of Gordie Howe's all-time scoring record in nearly 1,000 less games. And after being traded to the Kings, Gretzky even made hockey fashionable in Los Angeles. Some say it's lonely at the top, but Greta Weitz never seemed to mind. Admittedly, she had plenty of company in the New York City Marathon. In fact, more than 20,000 runners. But in the end, Greta Weitz always seemed to be alone, winning the event 9 times in 10 years.
Hey!
A fellow like Edwin Moses must have gotten to asking himself, what would it be like to lose? After all, Moses won 122 straight races, a streak that lasted 9 years, 9 months, and 9 days. For Carl Lewis, winning meant going where only one man had ever gone before. In the '84 Olympics, Lewis equaled the feats of Jesse Owens, winning 4 gold medals. Then in '88, Lewis increased his total to 6 golds in all. For our choice of 9th grade moment, we go now to the Serenity of Augusta National, where Greg Norman had to sink a 20-footer on the 18th green to win the '87 Masters.
Oh, my gosh, I don't believe it.
That you cannot hit a putt any better than that and not have it go in.
Norman said later, "I still don't know how the putt stayed out." But off he went to the 10th hole for a 3-way playoff with Larry Mize and Seve Ballesteros. The 3 golfers had played the tournament in 3 under par, and now on the first playoff hole, Norman and Mize made pars while Ballesteros missed his putt to save par. And then there were 2. Greg Norman, nicknamed the Shark, and the hometown boy, 28-year-old Larry Mize. Playing Augusta's famed Amen Corner, Mize hit a 5-iron approach.
It'll miss the green right, Steve.
Mize's shot landed 140 feet from the hole, and with Norman safely on the fringe, 30 feet from the cup, the best Larry Mize could hope for was to get up and down in 2 and possibly take the playoff to another hole.
How's that look?
It was the stuff of dreams, this Larry Mize saga. The first Augusta native ever to win the Masters. His first job was working the scoreboard at the Masters, and now 14 years later, Jack Nicklaus was putting the green jacket on Larry Hogan Mize. So what was a middle-aged Jack Nicklaus doing there? Well, the Golden Bear set the tone for a distinguished group of Grand Masters in the 80s. While folks were talking about his retirement, 46-year-old Jack Nicklaus took one more curtain call in front of Augusta's adoring masses.
This is for sole possession of the lead. Maybe. Yes, sir!
This beloved golden oldie shot a 30 on the final 9 to win his 6th Masters and a bear hug from a caddy named Nicklaus. The 80s was a glorious decade for the Grand Masters of golf, such as Chichi Rodriguez, the game's consummate showman. There was plenty to crow about as the Seniors Tour gave new life to the over 50 set. Horse racing's grand old man, Willie Shoemaker, was in his 5th decade of racing and became the oldest jockey to win the Kentucky Derby. With more than 8,800 career victories, he became an international symbol of horse racing excellence. One of Shoe's favorite mounts was John Henry, another splendid old-timer. Dubbed America's Horse, John Henry won Horse of the Year honors as a 9-year-old after being sold as a yearling for a paltry $1,100.
John Henry!
Bad boy turned folk hero was the story of Jimmy Connors, who enjoyed his turn as fan favorite, winning both Wimbledon and the U.S. Open in '82, the same year he turned 30. Also turning 30-something was Chris Evert, but not before winning 9 Grand Slam events in the 80s and securing her spot as America's beloved queen of tennis. Turning 40-something didn't seem to faze Nolan Ryan, who continued to rewrite the record book all decade long.
To Baker, and a ground ball to third. He has got it, Art. How? He got it! Nolan Ryan! No-hitter number 5.
Who would have dreamed that this hard-throwing, soft-spoken Texan, who first came up with the Mets in '66, would still be setting big league records 23 years later? To put Ryan's career in some perspective, Dwight Gooden, who became the youngest 20-game winner in Major League history, was 1 year old when Ryan broke into the big leagues. An interesting development, I think, that reflected baseball's ever-growing place in our national psyche was the surprising number of Hollywood movies dealing with baseball in the 80s. Some of them were very good, and they were at their best when they conjured up images of real-life characters. There were several times in the 80s when life imitated art. For instance, the 1988 Los Angeles Dodgers, a team that no one thought could possibly win the pennant outside of the eternal optimist Tommy Lasorda. It was a preposterous fairy tale, really, that just happened to come true. Our choice for number 8, the '88 World Series. Kirk Gibson was the National League MVP in '88, but in the Dodgers' playoff win over the Mets, he re-injured his hamstring and would not be in the lineup for the World Series opener against Oakland. But sometimes a good script must suspend reality. And in the bottom of the 9th of Game 1, with 2 out, 1 on, and the Dodgers down by a run, the hobbled Warrior appeared to pinch hit. 3 straight foul balls made it clear Gibson was in pain and overmatched by Oakland's Dennis Eckersley, the premier relief pitcher in baseball.
A big 3-2 pitch coming here from Eckersley. Gibson swings and a fly ball to deep right field. This is going to be a home run. Unbelievable! A home run for Gibson. And the Dodgers have won the game 5-4. I don't believe what I just saw.
Gibson would not bat again in the series, but there'd be no need. His one monumental swing was enough to catapult the Dodgers to a stunning 5-game victory in a World Series that could have only been written in Hollywood. If the Dodgers could do it, there was no telling who might triumph against all odds. On the high seas, where the World Series is hardly a bother, one of history's longest winning streaks was finally snapped. In '83, the challenger Australia 2 brought the America's Cup down under for the first time in 132 years. Dennis Conner, the American skipper, led his Stars and Stripes back in '87. As challengers now, the American 12-meter completed a 4-race sweep, and the Cup came back to its long-standing home. In another dramatic reversal, there was Danny Sullivan, who survived a 360-degree spin in the '85 Indy 500. Sullivan came back to overtake Mario Andretti, giving a 5th Indy title to car owner Roger Penske, and a little sizzle to staid old Indy. Even on 2 wheels, Greg LeMond reached speeds of 66 miles an hour in the '86 Tour de France, the world's most prestigious bike race. When LeMond donned the coveted yellow jersey in the 23-day affair, he became the man to beat, and some 20 million spectators lined the 2,500-mile course to see if LeMond could cycle his way into history. On the Champs-Élysées, LeMond held on to become the first American ever to win the Tour de France. Fighting long odds of a different sort, Jim Abbott pitched his way to the big leagues despite being born without a right hand. Abbott earned a spot in the Angels rotation in '89 and became baseball's most inspirational rookie. Rollie Massimino's Villanova Wildcats seemed to relish the underdog role, shooting a phenomenal 79% from the field in the '85 NCAA Finals. The Cats pulled off an upset of epic proportions, dethroning a Georgetown team considered by some college basketball's best ever. 3 years earlier, the Hoyas made their first Final Four appearance in nearly 4 decades in front of more than 61,000 in the Superdome. This time it was North Carolina trailing by 1, trying to slay the Giants of Georgetown.
Shot blocker like Ewing takes so much time. Doherty to Black. The time, 18. Shot, Jordan. Michael Jordan, 14 seconds. Brown. Look for Sleepy Floyd. Look. Oh, he threw it to the wrong man. He threw it to Worthy. It's over. It's over. North Carolina has won the 1982 NCAA championship.
The Hoyas would be back, but for Carolina coach Dean Smith, who'd lost in 6 previous trips to the Final Four, nothing could be finer. While the Final Four featured one cliffhanger after another, our choice for number 7 is the '83 final, featuring Phi Slamma Jamma, a fraternity of soaring Houston Cougars. Under coach Guy Lewis, Houston was ranked number 1 and a prohibitive favorite. But their opponents, Jim Valvano's scrappy North Carolina State Wolfpack, forgot to read the press clippings. Houston went on a 15-2 tear at the start of the second half and built a comfortable lead behind tournament MVP Akeem Olajuwon. But inexplicably, the Cougars slowed down the pace and State clawed its way back. Then, incredibly, after a missed Houston free throw, the Wolfpack got the ball back with a chance to win it.
Center line. Now long in the left corner. Back down to Bailey on the left sideline. to Gannon in the middle. There's Fred in 4 corners. Back to Wittenberg. 14, 13. Now to Gannon. Gannon back to low. 10 seconds. Now Sidney goes to Bailey in the corner. 5 seconds left to Wittenberg. Wittenberg tries about a 30-footer. No good. Step back. Lorenzo Charles. Safe. Lorenzo Charles slams it in. A missed shot from 35 feet. Lorenzo Charles grabbed it. Stuffed it back in. The Cinderella team has done it. The glass slipper fits. The Wolfpack has won the national championship.
There's a story behind Jim Valvano's mad dash around the court looking for someone to hug. Valvano and senior Derek Wittenberg had made a tradition of the post-game hug since the ACC tournament that year when Wittenberg had returned from a serious injury. So before the final game, Valvano was figuring that if State won, how great would it be to hug his captain in front of millions of people? Only trouble was when the time came, Wittenberg was off hugging his teammates and Valvano had to settle for his athletic director. Perhaps more than any major sporting event of the decade, the Final Four consistently went down to the wire. 5 of the 10 finals were decided by 2 points or less, and it was just this sort of drama that led Yogi Berra to utter those immortal words, "It ain't over till it's over." But my absolute favorite example of Yogi's sage remark came in the 1982 Stanford-Cal football game, which finished in such bizarre fashion that it inspired a little poem that went, "It was Moan, Rogers, Garner, Rogers, Ford, Moan, and the only thing that slowed them was Tyrell on trombone." Stanford kicked off to Cal, leading by 1 point with 4 seconds left.
With it, and he does. Ball comes loose, and the Bears have to get out of bounds. Rogers along the sideline, another one. They're still in deep trouble at midfield. They tried to do a couple of... The ball is still loose as they get it to Rogers. They give it back now to the 30. They're down to the 20. All the band is out on the field. He's putting one in the end zone. He's putting it in the end zone. The Bears have won. The Bears have won. Oh, my God.
"Get it close," his caddy told him. "I'm gonna make it," the golfer replied. And with that, Tom Watson claimed the 1982 U.S. Open at Pebble Beach. "I told you so" never tasted quite so sweet as when Watson's remarkable 71st hole birdie vaulted him past Jack Nicklaus, the leader in the clubhouse. Watson's title was his first in the Open and ended talk of a jinx. The New York Islanders began the decade with a reputation as a team that always folded, so to silence their critics, they simply won 4 Stanley Cups in a row. The reign began in 1980 in dramatic fashion, sudden death overtime against the Flyers.
To Tonelli. Here's Tonelli with Nystrom. The pass to Nystrom. He scores! Oh, Nystrom! And the New York Islanders
In an '89 All-Star race in Charlotte, an upstart driver named Rusty Wallace proved he's not afraid to trade some paint. Darrell Waltrip's final lap spin meant a win for Wallace in one of the most talked about stock car finishes in years. The Phillies were down by a run in the ninth, 2 on, 2 out. A good time to make some history for Mike Schmidt. In a game that seemed it might last forever, San Diego's Dan Fouts connected with Kellen Winslow 13 times and sent a titanic 1982 playoff struggle with Miami into sudden death overtime. As the heroic Winslow staggered to the sidelines, Ralph Benershka kicked a 29-yard field goal 14 minutes into overtime to win it for the Chargers and ease Winslow's pain considerably. Counting down now to number 6, a prize fight that actually exceeded its advance billing. They called it Super Fight. Sugar Ray Leonard, the challenger, against Marvelous Marvin Hagler, the champ. A duel in the desert for the World Boxing Council middleweight crown. Boxing experts wondered why Sugar Ray was even getting back in the ring after only one unimpressive fight in the previous 5 years. Especially against Hagler, a seemingly invincible champion who hadn't lost a fight in 11 years and was installed a solid 3-1 favorite. But by the 9th round, the fight was too close to call.
Best punch of the fight.
Hagler straight
Best
down
punch
the
of
middle.
the fight. For Hagler.
Hagler backing up Leonard into the Leonard corner. Short right uppercut.
He's nailing him now, Tim.
Right to the chin.
That's where he has to put that left hand.
Leonard in some difficulty. Hasn't thrown a punch out of this corner. Now he does. Trying to bang his way out.
Look at that determination of Ray Leonard. You talk about a champion.
What a display.
Absolutely gritted his teeth. Look at him go.
Again. In the middle of the ring. And Hagler stays there and punches back.
Going to be interesting scoring, Tim. You know, do you like the plotting guy or do you like the flash?
Leonard busy on the rope. Hagler trying to
There'll be
keep
no
him there.
knockout. No knockout.
When it was announced as a split decision, Hagler couldn't suppress a grin. After all, he figured, the champ always wins a split decision.
By the winner, by a split decision, and new middleweight champion of the world, Sugar Ray Leonard.
Sugar Ray's win was a stunner, but there were other classic head-to-head matchups in the 80s, including a savage confrontation between Hagler and Thomas Hitman Hearns for the middleweight crown. That time, Hagler didn't leave anything to chance.
To hurry things up here because that cut is not going to get any better. There's no question about it. Right hand says Hearns. He doesn't know where he is. Hagler goes in for the kill now. And he may be out. I'm not sure he can make it. 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And he's up. He's up at 9. He doesn't know where he is. It's over. This one is history. Marvin Hagler, a tremendous victory. And there will be no doubters in this one.
In the horse racing equivalent, 2 Kentucky Derby winners went neck and neck in the '87 Breeders' Cup Classic.
Stood up for one out. Judge Angelucci desperate. Ferdinand right there. Ali Shiva on the outside. Ferdinand. Judge Angelucci on the outside. Ali Shiva. Ferdinand has the lead. Ali Shiva. A final surge. The 2 Derby winners hit the wire together.
It was Ferdinand by a nose in a race that couldn't possibly be equaled. That is, until 2 years later in the second leg of the Triple Crown.
Easy go at the rail, head and head, coming to the 8 ball. Sunday Silence and Pat Valenzuela. Easy goer and Pat Day, head and head through the stretch. What a horse race this one is. Easy goer and Sunday Silence going nose and nose in the Preakness. Sunday Silence, easy goer. Here's the finish. Sunday Silence wins it by a nose.
The best rivalries in tennis could be found among the women, where Chris Evert finally relinquished the #1 ranking to Martina Navratilova, who then held the honor for 5 years running. Navratilova won 6 straight Wimbledons in the 80s, but in '87 a new challenger emerged to claim the top spot from Martina. Her name, Steffi Graf, and she earned the #1 ranking at the age of 18. The following year, all Graf did was win the Grand Slam, becoming only the 3rd woman to do so. And as the decade came to a close, Everett said of the 20-year-old Graf, she'll stay #1 as long as she wants to. Tennis is the source of our next great moment as we go back to the first year of the decade. Bjorn Borg, age 24, seeking his 5th straight Wimbledon title. And 21-year-old John McEnroe after his first. Wimbledon had never seen anything like the boisterous McEnroe, and he won the first set handily 6-1. But Borg's icy exterior hid an uncommon resolve, and the popular champion came back to win the next 2 sets. So how good was this brash young McEnroe? The world was about to find out. In an unprecedented 4th set, McEnroe extended Borg to a tiebreaker and then hung on dearly. 7 times Borg had match point, 7 times denied. The tiebreaker seemed interminable, 34 excruciating points. 7 times McEnroe had set point, 7 times denied. At 16 all, Borg served, both men feeling the enormity of it all. Yet again, Borg stood just 1 point from having the match even to 2 sets apiece, McEnroe's 8th set point.
Set point. First serve, Borg. It's good. McEnroe backhand, good. Borg forehand.
Finally, the tiebreaker was over. McEnroe, an 18-16 winner, and the match went to a 5th set, approaching 4 hours. Then, remarkably, Borg regained the advantage and arrived at a break point for the championship.
6-7, 15-40. First serve, good. Backhand return, Borg. McEnroe forehand volley. It's good. Borg chance to pass backhand. Winner! A winner cross court for Bjorn Borg, and he wins the match. He wins his 5th consecutive Wimbledon title with a tremendous backhand cross court. Borg in an unbelievable victory over John McEnroe. 1-6, 7-5, 6-3, 6-7, 8-6.
Just a footnote to that wonderful match. It was the first time Wimbledon was televised live all over the world. I remember feeling like I was watching a slice of history, not just because it was Borg's 5th straight win, but because of the incredible intensity of the match. You could also sense a changing of the guard. It was Borg's last stand, really, and the McEnroe era was soon upon us. You know, one of the great appeals of watching a sport like tennis or golf is that we can imagine ourselves hitting the same shot the pros hit, once in a great while anyway, and the players seem to be a bit more accessible than in most sports. We can relate to them a little better. But maybe an even greater source of pleasure is watching a little guy go head-to-head with the big boys in a sport like football. Then the instinct to root for the underdog comes out in all of us. So it was in our next selection, a clash featuring the 5'9" leprechaun of Boston College, Doug Flutie, squaring off against Miami's 6'5" Bernie Kosar. It was a perfect contrast in styles, and on the day after Thanksgiving in '84, they hooked up in a memorable duel. Flutie struck first, completing 11 straight passes and leading the Eagles to a 14-0 lead against the defending national champs. But Kosar responded with 11 straight of his own on the way to a 447-yard day. Trailing by 3, the cool-handed sophomore led the Hurricanes on a brilliant 79-yard drive in the game's final minutes. When Melvin Bratton scored his 4th touchdown of the day, Miami led 45-41, and it left Doug Flutie just 28 seconds to take the Eagles 80 yards. On a day when Flutie would virtually clinch the Heisman Trophy, throw for 472 yards, and become the first major college quarterback to pass for 10,000 yards, fans would remember something else entirely.
Well, here we go. Here's your ball game, folks, as Flutie takes the snap. He drops straight back, has some time. Now he scrambles away from one hit. Looks, uncorks a deep one for the end zone. Phelan is down there.
Oh, he got it!
Did he get it?
He got it!
Touchdown! 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 Touchdown, Boston College! He did it! He did it! Flutie did it! He got Phelan in the end zone! Touchdown!
I don't believe.
Oh, my goodness! What a play! Flutie to Gerard Phelan! 48 yards! No time on the clock! It's all over!
Doug Flutie certainly earned his place in the sun, but he had some pretty fair company. In his first year, Herschel Walker broke Tony Dorsett's freshman rushing record. Broke a few tackles, too, in leading Georgia to a national title. The next year, Walker nearly became the first sophomore to win the Heisman Trophy, finishing second to Marcus Allen. But in '82, there was simply no stopping Walker, who outpolled John Elway and Eric Dickerson combined to win the Heisman as a junior. Then along came Oklahoma State's Barry Sanders, who also won the Heisman as a junior while compiling some unthinkable numbers. Sanders gained 239 yards a game on the ground in '88 and scored 39 touchdowns in 11 games. No wonder Sanders figured he might as well turn pro. For Bo Jackson, the question was which kind of pro to turn. After winning the Heisman Trophy at Auburn, Jackson was the #1 selection in the '86 NFL Draft. But it also turned out that Bo was pretty fair at hitting a baseball.
He wanted to call time on that pitch and nails it to deep left. Can you believe that? Incredible. He wanted to call timeout. He didn't get it. Swung the bat and hit out of the park. A 3-run homer.
1981 was the year of Fernando Mania. With a look to the heavens and a wicked screwball, Fernando Valenzuela won the Cy Young Award as a 20-year-old rookie and became an overnight sensation. The Great Whoopee is how speed skater Eric Heiden referred to a similar clamor surrounding his quest for 5 individual gold medals in the Lake Placid Olympics. And when the games were over and Heiden had swept all 5 events at distances from 500 to 10,000 meters, the gold medal total of Heiden the Great ranked behind only 2 countries. Jim Kelly had a different concern. An MVP in the USFL, Kelly was dubbed the best quarterback no one ever saw play. Doug Williams did his best throwing in front of 80 million viewers, leading the Redskins to a win in Super Bowl 22 and capping a heartwarming personal comeback. But Joe Montana earned bragging rights as the decade's top quarterback, guiding his 49ers to 3 Super Bowl wins and winning the game's MVP award twice. It was the same 49ers who gave us great moment number 3. One hyperbolic reporter compared it to the Great Earthquake as a part of San Francisco lore. The Dallas Cowboys had knocked San Francisco out of the playoffs in the Niners' last 3 appearances, and now the indomitable quarterback was trying to overcome his team's 6 turnovers. With head coach Bill Walsh, Joe Montana devised a strategy to lead the Niners on a pressure-packed drive from their own 11 as time wound down in the 4th quarter. It all came down to one unforgettable play.
Just simply throw the ball away. You know what I mean? Hold it.
The Cowboys' lead was 6 points. The 49ers had the ball on the Dallas 6. The play was called sprint right option. Montana was to roll right, and if Freddie Solomon was covered, Dwight Clark was to cut across the end zone. Of such, legends are born.
Montana on the rollout to the right side. Throws up, being chased, finally fires in the end zone. Clark, touchdown! Dwight Clark catches the ball.
The 49ers would engineer another near-perfect drive to win the decade's last Super Bowl, but nothing would ever top the catch. And so on to the decade's runner-up, the 1986 World Series. It had been the year of the Mets, but the Boston Red Sox had outplayed the Amazons in the World Series, and by the time Dave Henderson homered in the 10th inning of Game 6, the Mets were on the brink. The outlook wasn't brilliant for the New York Nine that day. They trailed by 5-3 in the last inning of play. And when Backman flied out harmlessly and Hernandez did the same, a sickly silence fell upon the patrons of Old Shea. Then Carter ripped a single to the happiness of all, and the rookie Kevin Mitchell tore the cover off the ball. And when the dust had settled and fans saw what occurred, 2 Mets had staved off defeat. Ray Knight became the 3rd. Then from 50,000 throats there rose a lusty yell. It rumbled through the valley. It rattled through the dell.
Gets away! Gets away! Here comes Mitchell! Here comes Mitchell!
It knocked upon the mountain and recoiled upon the flat. For Mookie, the mascot of the Mets, was standing at the bat.
Mookie Wilson still hoping to win it for New York. 3-2 the count. And the pitch by Stanley. And a ground ball trickling. It is a fair ball. Gets by Buckner. Down the 3rd night. The Mets will win the ball game. The Mets win. They win.
Oh, somewhere in this favored land the sun is shining bright. The band is playing somewhere, and somewhere hearts are light. And somewhere men are laughing. And somewhere children shout. That somewhere's New York City. The Mets had lucked it out. Well, some people just plain have all the right moves, like Florence Griffith Joyner, for instance. FloJo attracted a lot of attention with those flashy costumes, but it was her speed that really made people turn their heads. In the '88 Olympics, she won 3 gold medals and the title World's Fastest Female. And FloJo captured hearts everywhere with that eye-popping smile. Mike Tyson's moves mainly involved destruction, and Iron Mike pulverized one opponent after another with a remarkable reign of terror. Among Tyson's victims was previously unbeaten Michael Spinks, who made the mistake of coming back for more. Spinks lasted all of 91 seconds and joined a knockout list that included former champ Larry Holmes. Tyson, who became the youngest heavyweight champ at the age of 20, was called by some experts the hardest puncher to wear the crown since Joe Louis. Now here's something that had never been seen before. The first ever NHL goal off the stick of a goalie. The Flyers' Ron Hextall. And a short tribute to Greg Louganis, who won 4 gold medals in the '80s with unparalleled moves. After an 18-year career which earned him plaudits as history's greatest diver, Louganis was chosen from among 9,600 athletes in Seoul as the game's most inspiring performer. The award Louganis won in '88 is called the Olympic Spirit Award, and if we go back to the first Olympics of the '80s, I don't think there'd be much doubt about who deserved the honor. The beauty of sport, it seems to me, is that it provides an escape and often a much-needed lift from the rigors of everyday life. If you recall, in 1980, there was a growing sense of frustration in this country with the state of domestic and international affairs. What transpired then over 2 weeks in February 1980 was not merely a sports event. The triumph was magnified, the athletes deified. It was a national phenomenon, a source of wonderment, delight, and pride for millions of Americans. It was, as Roger Angell reminded us, enough to send grown men and women to dancing and shouting with joy in the middle of the night. In case you haven't guessed, it was the U.S. hockey team against the Soviets. In the 1980 Olympics, the U.S. team had no right, really, to expect to beat a team that had defeated the NHL All-Stars the year before. But with the Soviets up by a goal and time running out in the first period, came a hint of what was to come.
Scores with 1 second to play.
Who can forget the crowd chanting, USA, USA, even as the Soviets went back on top? There was still a dream that the impossible could happen, a collective hoping against hope.
Rush on this power play opportunity. 13 seconds left in the penalty. Big shot for Davis, followed by Johnson. They score!
It was tied with less than 12 minutes to play, and now Coach Herb Brooks and his team were making believers of us all. They were truly America's team, the ultimate underdog, playing out an entire nation's wildest fantasies on a sheet of ice. Could it really be, we asked ourselves? The Americans led the Soviets, and 10 frenzied minutes dwindled down to seconds.
4-3, long shot. Ray able to hit a piece of it to sweep it away. 28 seconds. The crowd going insane. Karlamov shooting it into the American end again. Morrow is back there. Now Johnson, 19 seconds. Johnson over to Ramsey. Letonov gets checked by Ramsey. McClanahan is there. The puck is still loose. 11 seconds. You've got 10 seconds. The countdown going on right now. Morrow up to Schultz. 5 seconds left in the game. Do you believe in miracles? Yes! Unbelievable.
Here it is nearly a decade later, and the memories of what took place at Lake Placid are as sweet as they were the day after that miraculous victory. I've run into scores of people who just want to talk about it and how great it made them feel, and still does. Taking everything into consideration, personally, I can't imagine witnessing anything in sports that will ever top it. As memorable as the games were the celebrations that followed, with the whole world watching. There was Jim Craig searching the stands for his father, Mike Eruzione calling for the entire team to join him up on the victory stand, a sea of red, white, and blue embraces. It doesn't get any better than that. There was still the matter of beating Finland to clinch the gold medal and let the celebration continue.
This impossible dream